normal recurring schedule. Nice packed agenda for today. Just starting off right now with a brief welcome from the leaders. We're going to pass it over to Josh and Nico for the Change Analytics, Your Plan for Success, to kind of start us off on our presentation. We're going to pass it over from there to Mr. Robbie J., popular Tableau community member who's going to show off some of the work he's done at Figma with his Figma UI kit, Tableau UI kit. And then we're going to talk a little bit towards the end about the year in review and what's to come, some changes that are happening here in the CBUS TUG area. So a couple things to welcome and highlights that we should call out. You should sign up for TC. I'm sure you've seen this, but Tableau Conference is returning. It's back in May 17th, 18th, 19th, I believe, where there's both a virtual component and an in-person component. So definitely check that out. You're probably going to see a lot of different people. I know that I'm on there, and you'll just see some other fresh, faces that you've seen before presenting. One other shout out that I've got is it's a poorly designed slide. I did these, not too long ago, but this is calling out the Tableau Coders program. I called this out because this is something that I'm working on alongside Kyle Massey on my team. This is a bi-weekly initiative where you can join and not only learn about Tableau code and the APIs, but start to get the basics of how to code in general. So check that out. If you're interested, you can visit my website, datatheories.com/Tableau Coders. Sign up. You sign up just like you sign up for the CBUS TUG. It's the user group just like that, and recordings are also available there. Now, before I pass it over to Josh and team, Aaron, that's all I've got as far as like beginning announcements, things to keep an eye on. Anything else maybe I'm missing that you want to highlight? You're on mute.
I'm muted again. You'd think after 2 years I would have had that figured out. No, nothing on my end. Excited to have everyone back virtually. We are hopefully going to have some type of in-person this year if the numbers continue to decline as we are expecting. So it'd be great to see everyone's faces again in public. And we will have the virtual component of that as well. No, just thanks for being patient with us, and we look forward to giving you great content the remainder of the year.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. So passing it over, we're just going to get right into the content. Josh, Nico, and Nahul. I know I'm saying names wrong. I'm trying. Josh is a really hard name to say. So I'm just going to pass it over to you guys, not spend a lot of time introducing. I know you got some great stuff lined up for us. The floor is yours.
Sounds great. Thanks, Zach. All righty. Let me switch real quick. We'll start with a couple slides. All right. Nahul, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you flip to the next slide here, Josh? Want to really thank everyone for the time here today. We're super excited to be a participant here in this month's CBUS TUG. Absolutely love the community-centric feel that Tableau has, and it's all based off of really just the great people power that all of you help support and nurture the community. So again, super excited to be here. My name is Nahul Vyas. I'm a vice president of data and analytics consulting. I work for a firm called Avaap along with my colleagues, Josh Coleman and Nego Jovanovic. We are a management IT consulting firm based here in Columbus, Ohio. Have a lot of depth in a lot of different areas of consulting and IT management consulting. I'll quickly highlight a couple of the big rocks. One is our management consulting practice area, which Josh is a part of in our organizational change management practice. We have an absolutely stellar OCM team that has a ton of absolute cred in the industry across a lot of different industries, domains, sectors, but ultimately it's a people-centric perspective, and that's why we're so very excited to partner with them on this particular use case that we're presenting here today. The other big tier for us is our data and analytics practice. We have a very rapidly growing team. We're about 85, 90 folks. Again, you see a couple of the logos here, but we've got clients all over the country. We have the privilege of being a premier services partner with Tableau, have been a partner with Tableau for the past 6 years, really have kind of climbed the ranks. Alongside our partnership with Alteryx, Snowflakes, and AWS, we look at this as kind of the four-headed monster to double down in modern analytics, which I'm sure you all are having conversations in the context of potential cloud plays, and then really utilizing modern analytics capabilities to really drive out incredibly interesting and creative use cases. So kudos to you all. One of the things that I did want to quickly highlight as well, Zach mentioned Tableau Conference. We are a sponsor again at Tableau Conference this year. I will be out in Vegas. Would be happy to connect with any of you all to just talk about your experiences with Tableau. Again, no sales pitch whatsoever, just an opportunity to connect with the community and help support the community. So with that said, Josh, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you again so much, team, for allowing us to present here today. And we're super excited. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Nehal. So quick introductions. I'm Josh Coleman. As Nehal said, I'm part of our organizational change management practice and help, think through and bring to life ways that we can be leveraging more data within change management. I'll be talking a little bit about what that is and walking through a use case of how we're leveraging more data to really make more informed decisions when it comes to change management. I'm joined by Nega, so I don't know if you want to give a quick introduction.
Hey, Josh, thanks. Yeah, I'm Nega Jovanovic. I'm a solution architect here at Avaap. So what that means is most of my time I just get to work with clients to help kind of set up their Tableau infrastructure, just to make sure that they're, from a path perspective, that they're doing the right thing to, scale kind of the tools that they have, that they can get the most out of it. So that's a big part of my role, is just working with different organizations just to help them get most out of their Tableau products. So Josh, thanks for the presentation, man, and obviously kind of keep rolling.
Great. So kicking it off, what is change management? Even as we were getting on the line here, I was talking a little bit about that with some of the other presenters. And so change management, I'm sure many of your organizations might have a change management function within it, but it really focuses on the people side of change. So as we're deploying new technology, transformation, how are we bringing people along to ultimately drive the adoption and realize those benefits of any type of change we're introducing? And with that, it reduces risks and minimizes risks because we're getting more people involved earlier on to help identify gaps and opportunities, and really reduces that recost. So, if you do change management early on in a project, it helps, identify some of those things that reduces redesign, rework, redo, all of those pieces. And so, what does that look like? We're really focused on, understanding the current state of, organization, process, technology, and then what that future state looks like, and helping people make that transition through training, education, communications, and engagement, and, ultimately delivering on the results of the project. And so with that, there's a big opportunity to leverage analytics. Right now, historically, change management at times can be regarded as, fluffy, is a term that we sometimes hear in the industry, and hasn't necessarily leveraged data-driven insights. It's been based on gut feelings or maybe historical knowledge and experience of practitioners. But we know that change initiatives, no matter how small, are risky endeavors. And so we're really focused on bringing tools to help evaluate the change landscape and really make more, like I said, data-driven decisions, and showing that measurable value that change management is adding to projects. So we're going to be walking through a use case and kind of an example here. But before we do that, a little more on change management. Really, Tableau Blueprint, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, is a change management methodology within itself. If we think about things like deployment, monitoring, education, communications, and engagement, those are all things that we as change practitioners focus on that side of the project, and really making sure those are brought to life and executed correctly. And so, one of the models that we use is on the left-hand side here is ADKAR, so awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And what we've done here is, just highlighted some of the areas that we're collecting or, have potential to leverage data. So early in a project, when we're building awareness, Right, we're completing as change practitioners, change complexity assessments and stakeholder impacts assessments. So looking at right, how a project impacts the organization, right, and who's impacted by that. So there's obviously a big opportunity there to be leveraging things like HRIS data. As we think about desire, this is where maybe we're getting the sentiment of the organization through survey analysis and listening to things, through Teams chats and doing sentiment analysis through collaboration tools. When we think about knowledge, right, there's data from training completions and engaging in a change network, and change network is going to be the one that we talk a little bit more about here today. Right, and ability and reinforcement, that's when we're really looking, are we ultimately seeing that adoption that we would expect to see? So that's, usage statistics and things like that. Right, and so really, right, change analytics spans the length of the project, in all assets, and right, there's different opportunities to leverage data, as I was talking about. Mentioned, the change complexity and stakeholder assessments, but pairing that up with HRIS data and project management tools, we can really paint a whole picture of how a transformation is impacting an organization. Today, right, some of those assessments that we're completing as change practitioners are, in Excel, and right, being able to pull some of this additional data to really paint that holistic story and picture is where we see a lot of value and opportunity. So the use case that we want to talk about here today is one where, us as Avaap has been brought in to a client to better understand how they can manage multiple changes happening across the organization. One of the recommendations that we made was establishing a change agent network, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that is here in a second. The sponsors want to ensure that they select the right individuals and that they are leveraging this group in the right ways. And the change team has access to project data, HR data, and project stakeholder impact data. So a change agent network is something, right, that we might recommend as change practitioners to kind of serve as a two-way funnel. So we would select individuals that are representative of the organization to, one, provide feedback on, right, how is the change going? How is this impacting the organization? What's the, pulse? But also to provide information too, and ultimately enable as individuals to support the change and drive adoption. Right, we know that project teams are typically pretty small and can only have so much influence. And so this is really where a change agent network acts as, that organization to, support the change. And, typically, historically we've seen, right, we pick individuals, hey, John's a good guy, let's add him to the change agent network, or, Sally works with a big team, let's add her. And what we're focused on here is how do we leverage, data to really make those decisions. And, a couple key themes, right, with this project, right, as we mentioned, multiple initiatives with limited resources, several stakeholder groups. So want to make sure we have, that right representation. Want to understand that sentiment towards change. That's why we made that, recommendation for a change agent network. And ultimately what we're going to demo here is our change network dashboard. So before we, drive into the demo, on this dashboard, we're leveraging things like survey data, HRIS data, talent development data to really understand, right, who those right individuals would be to serve in our change agent network, and where we can provide the right coaching to ultimately drive outcomes. So I will jump into the demo. We can kind of walk through this and see. So, with this organization, we, worked with them to define what are the, key criteria or attributes of their change agents. And we said, okay, adaptability and flexibility. We want to make sure, right, that these people, can work through change and, are comfortable in that. We want to make sure that they're credible within the organization, so they have some influence. We want to make sure that they understand individual considerations. So, right, they can tailor their message and conversation to maybe the individuals or groups of individuals that they're having conversation with. Right, we want to make sure that they're persuasive and inspirational individuals, that they're supportive of the change in organization overall, and that they're willing and open to new ideas. And so what we did is built a survey with them, and we can see what some of those questions are as we hover over these attributes to measure within each individual how do they rank in these categories. So I won't click through all of these, but for example, right in the adaptability and flexibility category, we want to understand, I believe problems are opportunities, waiting for new solutions. I believe I'm easygoing, go with the flow kind of person. I often push myself to move away from the status quo or business as usual, right? And so we ask questions like this for each of the category on a scale from, strongly agree to strongly disagree, to really understand how they rank in each of these categories. And so also just call out this, and we'll come back to it. Right now we said that, okay, these are all equal weight for our change agent individuals, but we have the ability to kind of play with this a little bit to see how outcomes change. So, right, we did that survey, asked those questions, and ultimately came up with a change agent score based on those results. And so that's what we're seeing here. On this box and whisker plot, we can see the distribution of scores. And right, as I mentioned earlier, typically as we're selecting change agent network individuals, we don't have this data. So what we can do now is really understand, right, where individuals sit and who might be some of our good change agents. And so, right, we might want to select some individuals that are scoring really high because we know that they're, high scoring in each of those categories. But we might also want to select some individuals that are on this lower end. The reason for that is that's an opportunity to really focus on individuals that maybe historically haven't been supportive of changes, right? We all know that individual within our organization who maybe they've been there for a really long time and just are resistant to change. But how do we, focus on these individuals and get them to overcome that resistance? Because that's key, right? If we are able to do that early on in a project, it signals to others within the organization, right? Maybe I need to get on board too. John is always resistant to change, but he can adopt this, so can I. So that's why we might want to engage some of those individuals. And so let's say we want to focus on the finance organization in Illinois to find some individuals. We'd go through this, through all of our geographies and all of our departments to make sure we're representative. But let's say we want to start here, and I'm going to select Sherwin to really understand maybe this is someone that we could engage as part of the change agent network. So from there, I'm able to see how Sherwin, stacks up in each of those categories we looked at earlier. A couple of things that really kind of light up to me as a change practitioner. Sherwin is really supportive of the change, which is good. Sometimes that's, the hardest piece to overcome. But, I'd kind of summarize these lower scores in those other areas as she doesn't know how to support the change. Maybe she needs some coaching on how to be more flexible and adaptable, right? How she can tailor her messages to, varying audiences, and, how do we help her become more willingness and or open to new ideas? So, right, we would go through this exercise for, a variety of individuals, focusing, like I said, on some of those, maybe higher scoring individuals and a few of those lower scoring as well, to comprise a representative change network of the organization. And then what we can do is look at this over time. And so this bottoms line that we see here is, based on our experience and research, is what we would expect to see happen throughout a change. And so we call this the change curve. Kind of in short, as we work through any kind of change in an organization, we know that there's going to be a dip in productivity, a dip in kind of sentiment towards the change and ability. And that's natural. Our goal with change management is to really minimize that dip and make sure that we get through that change curve as fast as possible. And so what we're seeing here, right, is scores were pretty flat, and we stood up our change agent network in the March timeframe. And so what we're doing is we're monitoring this over time, and this is the current scores. These are kind of projected based on the current scores that we've collected on how things will flow. And what we can then do is go back to that original page and play with some of those weights and decide, right, as change practitioners, where might we need to focus with this group? So I can see, right, initially, okay, adaptability and flexibility is scoring pretty low in this current month. Maybe individual consideration is one of our higher scores. So we can play with that. And so I can say, well, if next month if we put a little more focus on, coaching individuals on being adaptable and flexible, and maybe took some focus off individual consideration, how might that play out? And so we can see with this, now yellow line is forecasting how changes might play out if we did that, switch. And so what we can see, right, this might not seem like a huge, increase, but if we look at this, right, like our expectation is, in the December timeframe to kind of, be through our change curve. But if we look at this, over here, sometime in the, October, November timeframe, if we make that change, we've really worked through our change curve and are, back to kind of peak productivity and sentiment. And so, right, that's a whole almost 2 months earlier than if we really didn't take any action. And that's, big when we think about change and transformation. So, right, those are the things that we can play with from a change practitioner perspective to, really decide how we coach this group. And we could, look at those individual scores and coach individuals, based on that too. And finally, one thing that we might do as a, change practitioners is refresh this change agent network. Maybe we've worked through the initial change, but, have something else and want to look at, right, how do we maybe get different people engaged? That's right, it's that same view, but now we've are able to really identify who's part of the change agent network, and who isn't, can go through that exercise to, select individuals and really know where to focus as we move forward with our changes. So, that's the demo. I'll jump back over and just, kind of wrap it up here. As, talk about changes, we know are risky endeavors, and that's why, we focus on change management. How do we support these people? ProSci, one of our partners that does a lot of research around change and, change success, says that, projects are 6 times more likely to meet or exceed objectives when we apply excellent change management. And here at Avaap, right, we say that excellent change management is leveraging data to really do our change management practices. Right, change analytics, like we've talked about, allows us to get that pulse of projects and people and transformation. Leveraging data that we have available. Mentioned that a lot of our change practitioners are collecting pieces of data, but really marrying that up to data that's available within the organization. And a couple callouts, right? We walked through one example today on how we might leverage data when it comes to a change agent network, but this is completely customizable and scalable, right? Another use case would be looking at changes across an organization. Maybe they have a portfolio of changes that are a roadmap, and how do we look at, right, where we need to be prioritizing our resources and efforts? How do we look at, right, how different changes are impacting stakeholders at different times, and are people going to be going through a lot of change at the same time from a technology standpoint? Well, maybe that doesn't work out. Maybe we need to spread this out a little bit so they can fully adopt, their new iPad device before we throw, a bunch of new forms on that, or before we migrate them to a new, mail platform. And with that, right, we're able to plan that out a little more strategically. And from the individual project standpoint, right, that we talked about, is helping to make lessons learned faster, identify those gaps earlier in a project, and ultimately course correct as we move throughout a project. So I think that's the bulk of the content that we had planned to kind of walk you through today, and want to open it up for questions from the group.
Feel free to put your Q&A into your questions into the Q&A section in Zoom.
And while we're waiting, seeing if anybody has any questions, just another shout out, Marshall, we are still waiting on your music suggestion. Looks like you got a question there, Josh. So what is the most consistent chart used for change management?
Yeah, I would say that's really the stakeholder, kind of the ones that we were talking about around like project and portfolio analytics and stakeholder impacts, right? So looking at how various stakeholder groups are going to be impacted across a length of time, so years, and various projects that are impacting them. So those are kind of the most common ones that we see used as we're working with clients, and kind of the initial ones to get them kind of introduced to change analytics.
Anybody else? Any other questions for the team here? So Mr. Bartos, actually, this is for everybody. Love to hear from anyone in the Tug community about how they are using the change management principles Avaap touched on and how they roll out their Tableau products where they work. So anybody kind of using these principles in their work today that they'd like to highlight that matches what Josh and team were talking about?
Zach, I'll just touch on a little bit where others are
Okay.
thinking, right? I know we have a large team down at the state, right? Both from a BI side, but also from a change side, focusing on that. And right, I don't know that they follow, I think they leverage some of the blueprint work, but also following some of our change management principles and standing up user groups and internally at the state and supporting the communications and education and rollout. And right, those are principles that we leverage on all projects, but there's a big team down at the state that does that and partners with our BI group.
No, thanks, Josh. I appreciate that. We were just having some conversations today about how to drive some, conversations around adoption and ultimately impact after you put a lot of time, energy, and effort in developing some of these products. And there's someone who's on the broader team with us that's pretty well versed in change management, and we were jotting down some ideas around how to adopt some of those principles and practices to, whether it's the before, the during, and the after conversations, and identifying the right folks. As you know, you can get the folks, we tend to gravitate toward the folks that are all hopped up on the tools, but they're not always the folks that need to be spending as much time and effort. It's the folks that help get you across that gap sometimes when there's a requisite amount of change needed to adopt and embed.
Yes, I think that's a great call out, right? I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls, right, we see on some of our projects. A lot of times we tend to be called in right halfway through a project that's underway and maybe isn't going as planned. And I think we see, right, not having the right individuals engaged early on in the project, providing that feedback, really giving that holistic view of what the organization is going to think towards a product or a change is one of the biggest misses. And right, and that's hard to come back from, especially if you have something fully developed and ready to roll out. Well, now we're going back to some of those things that we talked about, rework, retraining, and things like that. So I think identifying all those groups that are impacted by a change early on and getting them engaged to provide input is key.
That's great. We've actually got, while you guys are talking, a few things. So Langdon, we've been applying some of these principles informally, so it's great to see this so well structured. Good examples in Viz Demo. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for that comment, Langdon. And then Andrew, we are using ADCAR, but not with very much quantitative data to measure and focus our efforts. I look forward to bringing some of these ideas back to my team. So a couple nice comments there. Last call, anybody, any other questions for the team at Avaap?
Josh, did you mention the origin of the survey? Is it Pressy? What's the company?
So ProSci. So this was a custom survey, right, that we built for this client, right? But ProSci does have some great, surveys to get us started that practitioners use as well, right? That's maybe as sometimes we'll build some ad card visualizations to really show where organizations and individuals are in that process, and that's where we might use some of the ProSci survey.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So before we kick it over, is there any last questions or comments? And then for the folks that joined late, we would love your feedback on any type of music that you would like to play at the beginning of the session. So that was one of our recommendations from someone in the audience. So if you have any music that you'd like to listen to at the start of a meeting, let us know and we can work on that.
Awesome.
I'll just say
ahead,
thanks.
Josh.
And, appreciate the time, and right, here's our contact information if anyone wants to reach out. Always happy to talk about ideas, right, and how you guys can be leveraging change management on your work too.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing. And this will be recorded and we'll send that out, like normal. Introducing the next person, I gotta do this intro and then I'm going to pass it over to Aaron for the rest after this. But Mr. Robbie J. Janezic is a member of my team at Chase, and he's leaving. Apparently, he really didn't want to talk to you guys, so he's closing his door. This is a joke at work. We always make fun of him because we can see into his bathroom and things. And so,
it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. It's a thing. There's a lot of things at my team. If you haven't noticed just by hearing me talk and how I work with my team, there's a lot of things. But just a little history. Robert's been on my team for something like 2 years now, right, Robert?
A little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years.
Yeah.
So brought him in. Before I brought Robert in, I was always the guy when it came to Tableau dashboards and things, very finicky, always very precise, had to be in the exact, pixel perfect location. And I didn't realize that it could go a level higher. And so, Robert's role actually within the team is the designer. He designs pretty much everything that we do, even outside of just Tableau. And he's taken that passion of design and how it matches with the product design. And he's turned that into something he's going to demo to you today. So with all of that said, I'm excited to pass the presentation wand over to Mr. Robbie J.
When you say step higher, you mean like obsessive, right?
Super obsessive. It's okay. Like it's OCD. I don't even think really covers it.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Today we're going to be talking about prototyping and the Tableau. Oh, maybe I should share my screen.
Might be good.
Probably important.
I don't think we want to listen to you just talk about it for an hour.
Oh, I could just talk for hours, Zach. So today we're going to be talking about the Tableau UI kit and prototyping in general. Some of you may be familiar with this. If you've been on LinkedIn or Twitter at all, I'm talking about it pretty constantly. It's basically all that I work on now for my personal work. So I just want to clarify before I go too far, I am not affiliated with Figma. I am not affiliated with Tableau. This is a side project. It's not related to work at all. Just want to get that out there. So some topics. I want most of this to be a demo, so I'm going to go pretty quick through the slides. The topics today for our who am I? I'm going to talk about prototyping, what is it, etc., benefits, pros, cons. Tableau UI kit, what is it, pros, cons, demo. But who am I first? So my name is Robert Janezic. I'm a user interface designer working in the Tableau Center of Excellence at JP Morgan Chase, where I am a full-time designer now, right? Most of the time I'm spending my time, I'd say 95% of my time is spent in Figma, which is a prototyping tool that designers use to create things like applications and websites. And I create websites and applications for 150,000 Tableau user base. And, I was previously an analyst for years, right, at multiple organizations. I've posted on Tableau Public a good amount, and I'm I would say heavily active in the community. My computer. So the first thing I want to talk about is prototyping, right? What is it? Some of you may be familiar with it. I'm assuming most people aren't utilizing prototyping yet before they start creating their Tableau dashboards. But just a quick overview of what it is if you're not familiar. So prototypes, it's a close replica of what the end result of a product will look like. They incorporate most of the final UI design and interaction that the finished product will have. So in terms of Tableau, you can just imagine that you're designing it first in a tool like Figma before you actually, create it in something like Tableau. So what are some pros of prototyping? And these pros have more to do with prototyping benefits of, for Tableau. There's definitely a lot more benefits that are just more like web-based, but these are Tableau specific. So a big one for me is avoiding tech, right? So there's no data cleansing, there's no calculations, niche hacks, which I mean, come on, there's like 2 million niche hacks. You probably see like 10 blogs a day about some interesting thing to do inside of Tableau. Nothing server related. There's, potentially no clunky design functionality, because the way that I see it, designing should be done in design tool, and data visualization and analytics should be done in a tool like Tableau, right? Because those two tools, they do what they do really well, right? Big one is better quality, right? So you can create a prototype, you can conduct usability testing, and you can check that it follows correct design and data viz concept. So for example, you could show the prototype to some other developers and get feedback on, is this following data visualization best practices, et cetera, et cetera. You can do more advanced things like, dashboard navigation, et cetera. And another big one is lower cost. And I mean lower cost, not in terms of, a dollar amount, which could come into play as well, but I mean a lower cost in terms of, time devoted, right? So iteration at the design level is much less costly and time consuming than it is at the development level. For example, Zach, we work together, right? And we build applications that help our users, and we see this time and time again, right? So having to make changes after the fact, after it's already in code, or for example, in Tableau, it takes longer than it is, than it would if you were just, making some quick design changes in something like Figma. It's just a lower cost. So feasibility, you can actually understand which aspects of the idea prove difficult or impossible to implement. And a good example of this is at my previous organization, we actually had a good use case for multi-level Sankey. And we decided to prototype it first. And we went back and forth with our data architect to make sure that it was possible that we could even do it in the first place. But if we just went straight into Tableau, I mean, we probably could have spent weeks and weeks trying to get it right, or we could have just figured out on the front end that maybe this isn't what we want to do. It ended up being that we, wanted to go with that multi-level Sankey, but it's just kind of hedging your bets a little bit. And so this is one of my favorite quotes, and this kind of has to do with lower cost. So if you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design. So people will come to me, especially, when it's prototyping, if they're not familiar with prototyping, or because they're usually just Tableau developers, right? They come to me and say, oh, I don't want to spend the time prototyping because we just want to get into it and we want to get it out quicker. And I understand that if you haven't prototyped before, but I have seen, time and time again, where usually what happens is they're going to gather some requirements. They're going to go straight into Tableau. And then eventually, like 2 weeks down the line, they realize like, oh, geez, we should have spent more time looking at the design and making sure that this is actually what we want, et cetera, et cetera. And over the long run, they actually spend way more time than they would have if they would have just followed the design process of gathering requirements, prototyping, and then development. So it's just going to save you a lot of time in the long run. So now that we understand, kind of what prototyping is, we can talk about the Tableau UI kit and what it is. But first, we kind of have to talk about what a UI kit is, right? So in the design world, in the user interface world, UI kits, there's a million of them, right? So it's a collection of assets that contains a set of design elements, such as UI components and styles. So Tableau UI kit specifically, it's built in Figma, and it allows users to rapidly prototype Tableau dashboards. And a main piece of this as well is sticking to brand guidelines while building. While I was building this, I really wanted to make sure that any company, team, individual could take the Tableau UI kit, put their own brand guidelines, et cetera, colors, typography on it, and then everything adjusts to that. So you can completely stylize it to your own company. So what are some main benefits of the Tableau UI kit, right? So consistency. You can feel at ease knowing developers will design consistently for all dashboards going forward. And what I mean by this is if you are using the Tableau UI kit and you have 2 developers that are prototyping, you can feel at ease knowing that whatever they're prototyping, it's going to look exactly the same because you've already implemented your styles, your brand. So it's going to look the same across. And consistency in dashboard design is really important for companies. The next one is customization. Default, not what you want. That's all right. You can use the variants. And I'm not going to talk about, variants specifically. This is not a Figma crash course. But you can use the variants feature for more fine tuning. So basically it's the idea of you're not just stuck with just a very basic bar chart. You can customize it to your heart's desire based off of a lot of the things that I've created in it. One-to-one. So this is a really big one because people would come to me saying, we don't want a prototype because we're afraid whatever we show the client or whatever we show the end user, they're going to be potentially confused because it doesn't actually look like Tableau. So usually what happens is, before something like the Tableau UI kit, you would show someone a prototype and they'd be like, oh, this looks great. And then when you show them the actual development, they're like, oh, this looks different. Well, that's because, it's not one-to-one, right? It's not a one-to-one match of the interfaces of Tableau. And another big one is simplicity. So Tableau is simple, right? Drag and drop analytics. And it's the same thing for the Tableau UI kit, right? It's drag and drop functionality. It's paired with responsiveness, and it makes, you can make anything as large or small as you like. And so I'm going to quickly go through some stats and then we'll jump into the demo. And then these probably don't mean a lot to you. Just understand that it's a lot. So 1,100 plus components and variants, 1,000 plus styles, and then 2,200 plus different dashboard layouts. And that's a ton, right? There's no way I could create every single dashboard layout that a user or a company would ever want. But I designed it in a way that gives you a ton of customization options. And it's something that I'm going to work on for a long time. And I'm just going to keep making updates. So I'm just going to keep adding more and more. So let's jump to the demo. Now, this is Figma. So Figma is a web-based collaborative design and prototyping tool. And so you can think probably at your company, whatever company the people on this call are at, you most likely have user experience and user interface designers. And there's a very strong likelihood that to create the applications and websites that your teams use, they're probably using something like Figma to first design the thing first before it goes to the developers. And this is kind of what Figma is. So on the left-hand side here, you have pages. And I'm going to quickly go through the pages just to see what you get with the Tableau UI kit. So this is just a welcome page. Who am I? What is this all about? You have getting started, which has base type knowledge about what's a UI kit, atomic design, which is kind of what this entire kit is based off of. I really recommend people, if you're interested in design systems and how larger companies potentially build things at scale, I would look into atomic design. What's a component? What are component variants and styles? And these are Figma based things, so I'm not going to explain those exactly because it's not a crash course. And these are how-to videos specific to the Tableau UI kit. We have styles here, and these are all of the styles used in the UI kit. So it's really important to document every style that you use while designing. And a lot of times I feel like developers, Tableau developers, when they're about to build a dashboard, they could have general styles, but from time to time, the person will be like, oh, well, what color and, text size and weight should an axis, ruler be, or something like that. They're going to spend a lot of time thinking about the very small type of design things when they could just come to here and just see exactly what they're supposed to be, right? So the title for an axis is supposed to be this color, etc. And you can see the color here. And this just documents all of the colors throughout the kit. So basically what you would do as an organization is you would customize the styles to your own liking, and then you would document them here. So all developers in your team or your firm have the same documentation to go off of. And these are all of the palettes. These are all the different styles you could potentially choose from. And these are the default Tableau ones. We have Color Brewer, which is kind of like mapping. They use these in mapping a lot. Tailwind, which I highly recommend. These are my favorite palettes. And I use these for, neutral colors, primary, secondary, destructive, alerts, things like that. Veritas has a lot to do with mapping as well. And we have some examples here. So these are just examples that I created super quickly using the Tableau UI kit, just for you to kind of get a base of some of the things you could create. I'll skip Scratchpad. This is just for you to play around with and drag and drop stuff. And this is where we get into the actual components of the Tableau UI kit. So you have things like, the axis, horizontal, vertical, labels, columns, cells, titles, things like that. And these are things that are used across all of the different different charts essentially. And then we have line charts, bar chart, pie, scatter, table, and then KPI. Now this is, where it's getting into the one-to-one match, right? So these are the different Tableau user interfaces that you'll see in Tableau, right? So you can just easily use these and drag and drop them. So you can create dashboard prototypes that look exactly like Tableau. And the way I did that was pretty monotonous. I just took a picture of every single user interface in Tableau, and I just matched it exactly one-to-one in Figma. So you can just use these, and all of them are in here, right? All the dates for filters, measures, dimensions. We have parameters. So all the different parameter options, tooltips, and then other, so like highlighter, legends, pages. And then this is the dashboard components. So this is where the actual components for building a dashboard. We have things like footers, and all of these are specific to, dashboards. So dashboard, footer, paragraph, titles, a ton of different title options, and then KPI filter stacks. And the last sections are just icons, changelog, license agreement, and cover. So if you're not familiar with Figma, you're probably not understanding what a lot of these are and how you would actually use them. So let's go to the Scratchpad and just give a demo, right? So let's say I'm a developer and I want to start developing something, but I just got the kit and I just want to test it out. Like, how would you build a chart using the Tableau UI kit? So you'd go to the Assets tab in the top left. You would drop down to the chart type that you want. So for example, I want to create a bar chart. So all you do is drag and drop the bar chart, and this is what you see. And you'll notice that the thing that I just drag and dropped is from here. But then you might be confused. It's like, all right, well, this is the bar chart component, but there's two different variant, what I mentioned earlier, of the same component. And you'll notice when I go here, I have a little checkbox or a little switch on the right here. So if I click the switch, title on, title off. So I think you can kind of see what we can do with this functionality and why Figma is really great for design systems and prototyping. So let's go a step further. Let's say I want I want a bar chart with the title. Let's click into it a little bit more and see all the different options. You'll notice the options here, right? What is the orientation of it, right? Should there be a dimension axis? Should there be a measure axis? Do we want a field label? All of these different Tableau related things, you have the ability to customize it quickly without really knowing Figma that much, right? It's just about, do you understand the Tableau UI kit? So for this example, we'll say, we'll keep it horizontal, but I don't want a measure axis, for example. And so from what I want to do from here is I want to add 2 more bars. So how would you do that? If you just go to layers, you just unhide 2 of them, you'll notice that it scales properly, right? You add it in, it scales it. And then now I need to add 2 more cells, right? So I can add 2 more cells. Great, so I have the bars I want. Now I want to just show the min and max labels. So how would you do that? So what we do is go into the bar level, right? So these are different, the different bar options that you have. So I click on all the bars I don't want to label, and I can go to bar label, none. And then now I actually want to color all of the bars that aren't labeled because I really want to show a contrast. So I can just go into each of these, and this is where styles come into play, right? So I clicked on all of the bars, and I can go to here, and you have a ton of different presets of different palettes. And so I want a light gray, so I'll go here, for example. And just like that, you get a nice looking bar chart that you can use for prototyping. And obviously you can adjust, the labels as much as you want. And also if you want to make it larger and smaller, it's not fixed to a size, right? You could take it, adjust it, and you'll even see the minutia of this, right? The white space between the bars gets larger if you make it larger, and that's exactly what Tableau does, right? So if you make it smaller, white space gets more, less, and you can make it as large as you want, right? So that's one example of a chart. And let me give you another quick example of a chart. So let's do a quick scatter plot, right? So you want to do a scatter plot. We can make this a little bit bigger. And what are the options, right? Do I want a title, yes or no? I can say no, I don't want a title. And then what are the options? Y-axis, X-axis. I'll keep all of these. If I click in 2 more times, what's the color of the dots, and do I want the dots to be sized, right? So imagine you have a measure in the size shelf of Tableau, right? So I can say size, and I have 2 different options here. Now you're probably asking, all right, well, cool, you have some charts, but I actually want to create a prototype, a dashboard. How would you do that? So let me show you. So if we go to the dashboard section, you'll notice a component here on the left called dashboard. So we'll drag it in, and you get an entire nice formatted dashboard, but you get a bunch of options, right? So what are the options for your dashboard? Title, yes or no? Do you want a filters and KPI section? If so, do you want it left? Do you want it right? Do you want it top? Or do you want none? In this example, we'll just do left, right? And then you can say, do you want a footer or not? And these are like the main sections of a dashboard. So the first thing we want to do is we could just start at the top, right? So in this example, let's say this is the second part of a set of dashboards and you want like a breadcrumb. So if I click into it, what are all the options that I have for the title, right? You can see if I click all of these, you can see all the different options, right? So in this example, I just want a breadcrumb and I want a subtitle. I can hide the breadcrumbs we don't want. This could be called, home. This could be called profit breakdown or something like that. And this could be profit breakdown. This is a subtitle because it's just an example. Cool, so our title's done. That looks great. The spacing is great. White space is great. Fonts look great. So from here, I want to, complete the next section of the dashboard, which is the KPIs and filters section. And I really don't want all of these different, I only want, let's say, for example, 3 dropdowns. So we can click into it, click the ones we don't want, hide these, and we can just name, I'll just name one of them, for example. Like this could be region. Actually, let me go back one. And let's say, for example, you want to show a client what a dropdown of a prototype would look like, right? So you even get options for the filter. So I can click dropdown and you get exactly what the dropdown would look like, right? So I can call this region, north, south, west, and we could call this filters, and this could be filters apply to entire dashboard or something like that. Cool, so our filter section is done. Looks great, looks exactly like Tableau. Now we want to complete our content section. So once again, you're probably asking, all right, how would I take this and put it into here? Well, that's not really how the UI kit works. You could do some other stuff to do exactly what I just mentioned, but the easiest way to do it is like this. You hold Control, click into it. You can go back on, and I get an entire list of different layouts that I can use. Now you're saying, these say random columns, rows. Let me show you where those layouts are actually coming from, right? It's coming from the dashboard section, and these are all the different layouts. All of these are completely random generated. So before you start creating a dashboard, you can go into here and say, all right, what should my layout be? You could say, all right, well, what is this? I think that I want this to be my layout. This is called random 14. All right, so we can go to Scratchpad. We can change this to random 14, and we get the exact layout that we want. Now from here, you need to somehow get a chart into here. And you don't just drag and drop. All you do is Control, and for example, I want 2 bar charts and a line chart. I can hit Control, and I want to do both of these, so I can hit Shift as well. So I've now selected the 2 swap sections. Now all I do is click the component. I want to swap out the Replace Me component with the bar chart component. So I can click Replace Me, type in bar chart, and as easy as that, it automatically puts the bar chart into the section that you want. I don't want a title. And then let's do the other one. So I can go to Replace Me, line chart, and just like that, you get a line chart. And all of the features apply exactly the same from here. From here, you would go into your bar chart and say, do I want dimension, etc. And all of the same things apply here. You would just go chart to chart, customizing it. The last thing I want to do is, let me move this up a bit. Last thing I want to do is adjust the footer. And a lot of people use footers for like last refreshed, or they do like who the main developer is, so that a user could reach out to them. For this, I'll just do last refreshed. I could do like last refreshed at 3:20 p.m. on 4-22/22, something like that. Now, the cool thing with the UI kit is you can easily switch out icons as well. So if I click on the icon and I go to the image in the top right here, it's just on the base image, and I can type in something like timer. Go to timer, swaps it out. And as easy as that, I have a finished dashboard. And it looks great. It looks like Tableau. Everything's spaced well. I spent a lot of time on that. And I do want to quickly show styles, how you could adjust styles in the Tableau UI kit to fit your team. So let's say, for example, your team uses a red title on your filters for some reason. How would you automatically get all of the filter titles to match your styles? So here's what you would do. You go to filters, and all you would do is you would click on the title and look at the style. So what's the name of the style? It is the Tableau user interfaces, filters, title. Actually, that's text. I want to go here. And the color I'm using right now is title. And this is like a dark gray, essentially. So I'd click off the canvas. I would go to Tableau user interfaces. I would go to filters. And then you have title here. And then if you click this little box here called edit style, watch what happens to all of the filters when I change one style. So I'll go here and I'll change it to like red. You can see when I change it to red, since the title has the exact same style across all the different variants, one style change applies to all of your components. Now watch what happens when I go back to Scratchpad. It matches the exact same thing that I just switched in the style. So I think you can kind of see how this works, right? Like you'll get the Tableau UI kit. You adjust all the styles to your liking, whether that be text size, weight, color, etc. And then you start building your prototypes, and all the styles match exactly what you want. So that's a quick demo of the Tableau UI kit. It can get a lot more advanced, but that's kind of just a quick explanation of what it is. So if I go back to presentation, if you're interested, you can go to tableauuikit.com. My social on Twitter is at Robert Janezic, and that's my email as well. And here is the Tableau UI Kit website if you're interested. And you can feel free to reach out with any questions that you may have. That should be it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robbie J.
Yep.
We've got plenty of time. So if anybody does have questions for Mr. Janezic right now, go ahead and throw them out in the Q&A or the chat. I think either is fine. Just a minute. We already have a question for you, Robert, from Paula. That was great. So is this essentially a template builder?
No, so this is not a template builder. So this is a tool that allows Tableau developers to quickly prototype designs. And a lot of the times, let's say, for example, you're in a team and you're building Tableau dashboards. A lot of the times, like a client will come to you saying, hey, can we get a quick prototype of what this would look like? And this happens a lot, right? They'll say, hey, can I just get a quick, indication of what the design of this would be like? You can use a tool like this to prototype what it would look like first. And, a lot of the teams, I'd say, the biggest teams when it comes to design, they prototype first. And I think the same should apply to Tableau, right? So you should be prototyping your dashboards before you actually go into development inside of Tableau. But I do want to say, you shouldn't prototype every single dashboard ever, right? It's kind of a scale. So on the left, far left, you have like just a sheet that has some rows, right? And then the far right, you have like a 15 dashboard, huge project that thousands of people are going to be using. If you're on like the far right, or even if you're in the middle, I'd say, or even like a little bit to the left of middle for that, like of how large the project is and how many people are going to be seeing it, you really should be prototyping and getting feedback on your designs and data visualization best practices before you actually go into development. But I'm not one of those people that says like, you should always prototype no matter what. So I hope that answered her question.
Yeah, that's great. And we also have a LinkedIn again right here. This is so cool. Thanks. Great points about using the right tool for the task. Design and design software. The kit looks amazing. And Paula said yes and thank you for answering her question. We'll give it just another 30 seconds if you guys have any other questions or music. Or Robert, what would you suggest that we start off with music in the sessions going forward?
What me?
What music? I think I have some thoughts, but I'm curious.
I don't know, Zach, some like alternative stuff. Let's get some like Mac DeMarco in here. Let's get some like Phoenix. I think people would really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aaron, what about you? Any thoughts on music?
So I'd say EDM, but I don't think that's up everyone's alley. We do have one more comment from Marshall Bowden. Our business intelligence and analytics group consists of data analysts and data engineers. We do all end-to-end for our users. We start with a rough proof of concept with our business users. We gather information via good use cases. We then use Tableau Prep to analyze the data to better understand the unique values in conjunction manual queries. Tableau Prep will show us min, max, and unique value columns unique values within the columns. Then we begin scoping out our core facts and dimension tables. We design them to be scalable. We rapidly build our tables. Then we start building out our Tableau workbooks and meet with our customers to get feedback frequently to make sure we are accomplishing their needs. Once we are finished with the product, then we polish with the company standards. We will come back to enhance it as needed. Thoughts on this? I think that's a great workflow that is similar to what we use at Comcast. So with our data, it goes through our data platform, which we call Titan. And then once it goes through that, we build out a prototype, take that prototype back to the users, get sign off on like, hey, does this look and feel like what you're expecting, does it answer the questions that for its intended purpose? And then if not, then we go back and make some adjustments, take it back, and then we pull the whole data pipeline through. Steve or Zach, any thoughts on that thought process, on that workflow and the process?
Yeah, I think you guys covered it. I don't have much more to add right there.
Cool.
No, nothing here. I'm not sure about, oh, there's some chats coming in.
That's all me, so that's a host chat. Okay, Robert, appreciate your time.
Yep.
Thanks for the presentation.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that you'll have some people reaching out with questions.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides again. Go ahead and go into presentation mode, flip all this stuff, and then I'll go ahead and share again. All right. Okay. Aaron, you want to go ahead and go through the next part?
Yeah, so it looks like you have control. So I'll have you go to the next slide.
All right.
Awesome. So the first announcement that we have is our beloved Steve, leader, friend, and comic, is going to be stepping down from his role within the Columbus Tableau user group. But not to fret, we do have someone who is willing to step up and help with the responsibilities. So we have Heather on the call as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve to say a few words to the entire group.
Thank you very much. I'm at least one of those three things, but it's probably not a leader. No, I appreciate it. Appreciate again the support of Zach, Aaron, and the community. I think it's been a fantastic ride, and unfortunately, probably like some of you, my day job and the demands of that are not allowing me to pay the time and energy that this beloved community should expect, or should expect from me. So again, I appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been exciting, and I'll still be around on all the socials, primarily MySpace, but try to expand some others. Thanks.
Trying to keep that comic right up to the end, right, Steve?
It's just to fight back the emotions. You know?
So you can't show the real feelings, but you gotta shelter it. Well, I've only been on the team not very long, but I have been a member of the tug. Steve, I think speak for everybody, really appreciate everything that you've done over the last couple of years. I think that you've helped to make this a very notable user group, and you put a lot into it. And if anybody has any other thoughts or anything to say that's been around for a while, go ahead and throw those comments out in the chat. And thank you again, Steve, for everything. And as he said, he's not going anywhere. He's not getting away from us that easy. He'll still be around. And as Aaron mentioned, we're also going to introduce Heather goes by Go Goff. She might explain that a little bit, but Heather is actually another person from my team. So very excited to welcome Heather. So Heather, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody? Say hello.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Goff. No matter how many times Zach tries to change it to Go, my last name is Goff. And as he said, I work with him on the Tableau COE at Chase. And I have been focused for the last several years on the training piece of Tableau within Chase. And I run the Tableau Academy there. So I'm not sure what else you want me to say. I look forward to working with you, Zach and Aaron, on the tug.
Perfect.
I'm sure you're excited to work with me more.
And welcome. And so with that, I also want to pose it to the group. If there's someone from, I know we have representation from Chase today, and then also Comcast, which isn't necessarily here in Columbus. But if there are folks out in the community that are interested in learning what we do behind the scenes, or have a session that they think would be really great to present to the group, feel free to connect with myself or Zach, and we can either get you partnered up, kind of go through our trial of hey, would they be a good fit for the leadership team? And like, what would that look like? Or like, can we get you slotted in for one of our upcoming sessions? So with that, I think that's a good segue to our next slide. So as we said at the beginning of the call, we are going to try to do these monthly. I know we fell off for a couple of months. That was partly due to work issues and trying to pull everyone together. So our next, not in person, our next meeting is going to be virtual on April 20th from 2 to 4 o'clock. We're going to try to keep that 2 to 4 or 1 to 3 time slot each time. Right now we have Steve Wexler who's going to be presenting, and then we have one open slot. So we have a couple of people that we've reached out to kind of fill in that gap. But if you're interested, let us know. But Steve Wexler is going to present on April 20th. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Yeah, so this is your time. We've got, geez, how much time do we got? We got 45 minutes.
We finished
So
early.
So any question about anything in the world, it doesn't even have to be Tableau. I don't care. Anything.
The entire world, Zach.
Yeah,
Just like
everything.
anything.
The universe. You know what? Let's not limit it. Let's not limit ourselves.
So it looks like we have a question for Chris. Can you remind me if there are additional people from my company that I need to add to these invites? How do I do that? So we recommend that they register using our RSVP page, which is Splash. You can also, when you get this meeting invite, there is a share card. So you can share this RSVP out to other individuals, and we recommend that they just register and they would get an invite to their calendars.
What in the world is happening in the background, Aaron?
They're replacing the water mains right outside my house.
It's just it's not like you just had somebody hitting a drum right behind you. Just like
Yeah, that's been going on for about a month now.
fun. Yeah, so and here's the site, usergroups.com/ I think is it just this Columbus Tug?
Yeah, so another thing that we try to do when we're creating new events, so if you go to like the Columbus Tug, if you saw the URL, so it's April 2022, we tend to try to just change the month. So next month, or yeah, I guess this one is the April. We would then change the invite to say like June 2022, July 2022. That way it's very easy to say, like, no matter what month we're looking at, you always know the URL link to connect.
What else? What other questions do we have? Heather, I know that you just did your Tableau Conference recording with Mr. Steve Wexler, just like right before this. How did that go?
It was great. I think they're going to have a very tough time getting us down to 25 minutes.
It's good. So definitely, as we mentioned, there will be some familiar faces in the Tableau Conference. So definitely check that out. Check out our very own Heather, goes by Go Goff, on there. Another question by Marshall. I don't know if I should answer this, Marshall, because I still don't have an answer on the music, but I guess we can go through it. I'm curious about the user group. Does your company lean more on individual business users to meet the data needs, or are they creating BI&A groups to meet those needs?
So I'm assuming BI&A is business insights and analyst groups to meet those needs. From my company's perspective, we have a separate team dedicated to that I actually lead. And then we have an engineering team, and we call them our backwaters team, but they're really the folks that are ingesting the data into our platform. The engineering team is responsible for flattening and normalizing the raw data into a consumable format, so maintaining our databases. And then we have our insights and analytics teams, which work with our data modelers to actually build out new data models, build together Tableau dashboards and reports out to the consumers. And then I'll turn it over to Zach and Heather for the Chase methodology.
You feel free to answer that.
Okay, I mean, I've been talking the whole time. I thought you might want to answer one. All right, so we in the COE at Chase, I mean, we don't do as much actually working with people to get their data constructed or, building things or anything like that. We're more service-based. So like Heather mentioned, she works on training and things like that to empower others to do these things. We do have best practices and guides and how-tos and all the things like that, but we're less focused on individuals. As Robert mentioned, we do have 150,000+ people using Tableau. So for the small team that we have to scale, we don't really have the ability to work with teams on a more ad hoc basis.
And I will also put it out there that if there's anyone from the community that would like to raise their hand, we can allow you to speak and talk about what you're doing in your company as well. I'm also going to do a shameless plug. I am speaking at TC 2022 this year. And so my talk is really about how to trust your data and building a flexible, agile data print across your organization. So in my presentation, we talk exactly about that. How do you build a platform? Is it an individual? Is it a group of individuals? Is it a separate team? And how does that team integrate with other teams if it is?
That's awesome. All 3 talk leaders of CBUS will be presenting at TC 22. So that's great. We're fancy up in here.
Wait, Zach, you're presenting?
I did a 5-minute presentation, so it still counts. It counts. I'm in there in a little video with other people, so that's fine. That's all I've got. I've got a month and I've got a baby, so I can't do more than that. It's too much.
And then if there is anyone that's actually going to TC in person, let myself or Steve or Zach know, and we'll try to connect with you out there if you guys are also going. I don't know if Steve and Zach, if you're going.
I am not, but Heather will be there. Heather is also doing another presentation in person, so
Perfect.
You guys should connect for sure. I don't know, Steve, yes. Are you going?
I am not.
So anyone else in the community, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn or via email, and we can maybe set up some type of Columbus meet and greet while we're out in Vegas.
That would be great. There's already 2 people, Chris and Stephanie, both are saying that they're going, so
look forward to seeing you guys out there.
Already feeling the FOMO.
We'll be there first time as well. It's very fun. A lot of great people that you can interact with when you go to conference. Any other questions? Here's my fun music suggestion.
Here it is. Harry Potter theme instrumental music. That sounds expensive. It sounds like that. That'd be tough, but we'll see what we can do. I appreciate it. We got the answer.
Awesome. We have another one from Marshall. Our customers use Tableau to analyze data within our data marketplace. They often don't know the data engineering that goes into the back end to prep it for Tableau. When asked what we do behind the scenes to make it easy, we explain it involves some facts, dimensions, and a little bit of magic. This is how your data appears at the snap of a finger. I would maybe elaborate on that. So one of the things that we do in most of our dashboards or our data sets before they're brought into Tableau, or even once they're brought into Tableau, is we have what's considered a cover page. And on that cover page, it provides you like, when was the data last updated? What was the source of that data? What's the cadence in which it's updated? It also provides not necessarily the nitty gritty of how the code works, but like if there's like 5 steps that you walk through in your process, it lays it out like, hey, we brought the data in, we made sure we cleaned up all the laptops to make sure that they were all using the same name format convention. And then we did this X, Y, and Z. And so we lay that out on that cover page. That way folks have insight into what you're doing in that engineering step, but they don't have to see like the full magic of what goes on. And so then that allows them to trust a little bit more of what's going on and like the data that they're actually presenting out.
Thanks for the ping. Sorry, I was still presenting as I posted on Twitter.
Any other questions?
All right, April 20th. We better be there.
Awesome.
Aaron, Heather, and I are gonna talk music beforehand, so we'll figure something out with that. It's gonna be a party.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys all for attending. Connect with us on LinkedIn, and we will look forward to seeing you on April 20th. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.